I will call to order the April 18th, 2011 Board of Commissioners regular meeting. If everybody would stand for the presentation of colors by Cub Scout Pack 5, Cold Springs United Methodist Church. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. At this time, I call on Pastor Roger Byrd from Cabarrus Christian Fellowship for the invocation. Pastor Byrd.
Let us pray. Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for this beautiful day you've blessed us with. And Lord, we thank you for this great country that we live in where men can be free. We thank you, Lord, that you have condoned business. And we thank you, God, that you have organized our country in a way where people can be represented by representation. And Lord, I pray for this board today. I pray, dear God, that you would bless these men and women. May you bless them with wisdom and understanding. And Father, during this presentation tonight, during this meeting tonight, I pray, dear God, that decisions will be made that will benefit the people of Cabarrus County. I thank you again for the opportunity we have to serve you. And Lord, we again pray a blessing upon this committee. And we pray that you would guide them and direct them, and may your will be done. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Amen.
Now, if the young men from Cub Scout Pack 5 would come forward and introduce yourselves. And then when you get finished, after you introduce each one of yourselves, you'll go over to your left to Commissioner Burge. He has a pen to give you.
My name is Byron Presley. My parents' names are Jason and Candy Presley. I go to Mount Pleasant Elementary School.
My name is Shay Owens. My parents is Angie and Lee Copeland, and I go to Mount Pleasant Elementary School.
I'm Zane, and I go to Mount Pleasant Elementary School. I'm Remy, and I go to elementary school, and I'm in 3rd grade.
Thank you very much. We have before us, under the approval of minutes, we have minutes from February the 21st, 2011 and March the 7th, 2011. Those were previously sent out. We have a motion to approve the minutes as they were presented.
So moved.
We have a second? We have a motion, we have a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Next is the approval of the agenda. There are some changes to the agenda that's found on page 321. Which is an EDC quarterly update for the period of January to March 2011. Is there a motion to approve the agenda as presented?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
We have a motion. Do we have a second? We have a motion. We have a second. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Next is the recognitions and presentations. Under C1 is the Soil and Water Annual Stewardship Week proclamation. I'd call on Supervisor Jonathan Johnson as a presentation. If anybody else is with you, Mr. Johnson, if you'll ask them to come forward as well. I don't know if they've had a chance to get here. Okay. Thank you.
It'll be just I. Hello, my name is Jonathan Johnson. As a member of the Cabarrus County Soil and Water Conservation District Board, I would like to thank you for having me and sharing this time with me. And I, along with two other boards, your board and the school board, are elected and have a duty to serve, and we do a great job, and I appreciate you for your selfless service to our county as well. Our conservation district was formed nearly 50 years ago from its multi-county predecessor to provide conservation assistance to all county citizens living in both incorporated and in unincorporated areas. According to the 2010 Cabarrus County Community Survey public opinion poll, our citizens rank protecting water quality and the environment as a top priority for our county leaders. Our conservation district exists to encourage the informed and responsible stewardship of the land and all of its natural resources: soil, water, trees, plants, air, and animals. Our vision echoes the first goal in your strategic plan, namely, preserve and enhance the quality of life by addressing growth with sound public policies that sustain resources, provide high-quality services, and fund infrastructure needs. All four of those priorities are current in our current Conservation District strategic plan echo this goal, namely, community conservation, conservation education, land use planning and conservation easements, and the backbone of our great county and country, agriculture and farmland preservation. Currently, our board and staff and partners in conservation are engaged in the initial phase of a stormwater project on the Cox Mill Elementary School campus. When complete, this project with a nearly $1 million budget will achieve priorities in both the county and the Conservation District strategic plans by improving currently impaired water quality in Clark Creek, enhancing management of the state-designated regionally significant Clark Creek Heron Rickery Natural Heritage Area, providing buffers protected by conservation easements that surround the wetlands on Clark Creek, and providing conservation education opportunities on both the school campus and at the planned conservation field school on a nearby Conservation District property. Conservation plans developed by our extremely helpful and knowledgeable staff and approved by our Board of Supervisors, we ensure the sound management that is required by the state statute on agricultural land and enrolled in the present use valuation program through the County Tax Administration Department. These conservation plans are based on technical standards established for a diverse selection of conservation practices. We take seriously our role as the lead agency on conservation easements at the local level, and we thank you for supporting our land conservation efforts financially, as permanent and term conservation easements provide an extra measure of sustainability for our agricultural lands that are so vital to a healthy and local economy. In addition, Conservation District Cost Share Program contracts assist farmers as well as suburban and urban residents with maintaining economic viability through better management of energy inputs and natural resources. The Cabarrus Soil and Water Conservation District encourages everyone to think about their personal responsibility to be a good steward of natural resources during its annual Stewardship Week celebration. The National Association of Conservation Districts has proclaimed April 24th through May 1st, 2011 as Stewardship Week, marking the 56th year of this national event. The 2011 Stewardship Week theme, Forest for the People, more than you know, more than you can imagine, reminds us that forests play a critical role in providing clean water and healthy wildlife habitat, as well as providing jobs for our citizens and products that we use every day. Being good stewards of our natural resources at home and in our communities is an important responsibility for each and every citizen. Our Conservation District Board looks forward to working in partnership with your board in many months ahead as we have in the past. And thank you for your time, and excuse the nervousness from the beginning.
That's fine. Now, as part of your presentation, there is a proclamation that we have that you're asking for us to adopt. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, the proclamation that we have before us is Stewardship Week 2011, Forests for People. Whereas fertile soil and clean water provides us with our daily sustenance, and whereas effective conservation practices have helped provide us with a rich standard of living, and whereas our security depends upon healthy soil and clean water, and whereas stewardship calls for each person to help conserve these precious resources, therefore I join Cabarrus Soil and Water Conservation District in hereby proclaiming April the 24th through May the 1st, 2011 Stewardship Week. Do we have a motion to adopt this proclamation?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
We have a second. We have a motion, we have a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you, Mr. Johnson.
Thank you all so much for your time.
Next is C2, and that is the 2010 Outstanding County Program Awards. And we have Mr. Nicholson from North Carolina Association of County Commissioners Outreach Associate to please come forward. And if Mrs. Heather Jones and Mrs. Debbie Bost, if y'all two would come forward.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. It's a pleasure to be at the Cabarrus County Board of Commissioners meeting this evening. It's good to see some of you again. I saw a couple of your commissioners when they were at the newly elected commissioner school, and a couple of them last week at a meeting, so it's good to see you all again. I'm real pleased to be here tonight to provide this county with the Outstanding County Program Award for your 4-H Citizen Focus Program. I like this award because this award, besides being selected by commissioners, department heads, and county managers and staff from across the state, one of the criteria of this award is this award can be taken from you, your ideas, and given to other counties. And that's what we think is real important, so they have an opportunity to see what you've done and be able to use that in all across the state of North Carolina. So I congratulate you for that. I also will tell you, before I forget about it, we're all looking forward to August. You all are working very hard on the planning for the annual conference, and if I can do anything to help, please feel free to give me a call. I'm going to ask Heather Jones to come up and give you a little more detailed, a short presentation on the program and answer any questions you might have. Heather.
Well, the good thing is that many of you have participated in the program yourselves. You know what it is, but the good thing about getting recognized is we can share it with other counties. And it's been in county lines, it's been in NACO, there's been lots of good publicity that you all in Cabarrus County have gotten from this program. But what we do is we invite 10th graders who are taking civics to come to the governmental center, or we have added a couple other sites as well as we've grown. And what they do is get to have a hands-on participation, interaction with local government. I learn better by doing. 4-H says we all learn better by doing, and we do. So instead of students just learning about local government in their textbooks, they get to interact with it. So they do 3 things as a part of their day for Citizenship Focus, and they have small group interviews with county employees. Very many of the people even sitting in this room have participated in that. It takes about 20 to 25 different volunteers to make it happen each time we do it. So that they learn about what the different department heads do, what departments do, county employees, and they get to ask some questions of them as well. And another thing they do is a budget simulation activity, and they get to take on the role of commissioners, and some take on the role of department heads or members of boards, and they have to balance a budget. And I think the people who lead that will tell you that they get a lot out of that, and they learn a lot. And then the other thing that they do is have a panel discussion with elected officials or city and county leaders. And they get to do that in here, in the Board of Commissioners chambers when they come here, so it gets them comfortable with the space and being able to ask questions confidently of elected officials. So at this time, we have 8 high schools in Cabarrus County. We've had 7 that have participated, so we're growing a little bit each semester. This is the 4th semester we've done it. We have 1 more to go this semester, and that will put us at about 1,600 students thus far. And so it's a program that I want to be able to sustain forever and ever, so that we'll have more educated voters in Cabarrus County, and really appreciate your support of that, individually coming to participate, but also the use of the building, county employees, and all the support that we get otherwise.
Are there any questions for Jones? Mr. Chairman and Commissioners, on behalf of the North Carolina Association of County Commissioners, I'm very pleased to present Cabarrus County for your 4-H Citizenship Focus Program, an Outstanding County Program Award for 2010. Congratulations.
Thank you. Ms. Bost.
If I may make one comment, I just want to make sure everybody understands that this award belongs to all county employees, all departments, and everybody in Cabarrus County, because we could not do this without the support of everybody in every department, because without that, it would not be successful. And everybody is truly committed. Every time we say we've got a new date coming, every department head said, oh yes, let me get that on my calendar, let me get everybody involved, and there's never been a question of everybody's support. So truly, this award belongs to everybody, every department, every county employee, because they've all worked hard to make it happen. So thank you.
Well, you know, the Commissioner CARRUTH has participated, Commissioner Meismer has participated, Commissioner Burridge, and I've participated as much as I can. Commissioner Poole has other commitments at times. However, having the kids in here is, you know, you've heard of busting at the seams. That is busting at the seams in action, because of where everybody's going. And it's great to have the kids being involved, asking questions, and getting a better understanding about government, whether it's county, local, a city, what you have it. It's very important. But thank y'all for what y'all do.
Thank you.
Mr. Nicholson said that some counties choose to keep the award in the county office or give it to different departments, but I just went ahead and gave it to you because it really is a county award, so you can keep it in this building somewhere.
Thank you. Next we have is our consent agenda. Do we have a motion to approve the consent agenda? Do we have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
We have a second?
Second.
All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion carries. And Commissioner Poole corrected me in regards to the informal public comments. I skipped over that by accident. I apologize. The first that we have here, this is opportunity for informal public comments up to 3 minutes. The first card that I have, which I think is going to be addressed and have an opportunity to speak later in the meeting, is Robin Covington and Eric Barnes. I believe y'all will be speaking later in the meeting and not at this point in time. I just wanted to make certain that that is correct. Okay. The next card that I have is another card that I believe is wanting to speak later in the meeting, but I want to confirm is David Yurty. Danny, excuse me. Later in the meeting, correct? Thank you, Mr. Is it Yurty?
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Yurty. The next card that I have is Mr. Price Crutchfield. Mr. Crutchfield.
My little Crutchfield here, I'm again up here talking to you, been arrested 17 times. And your tax money had to help pay for it, while the Concord police can't solve double murders. I've got a concern over here at the courthouse. I'm not opposed to the Holy Bible being in the courtrooms, or anywhere else for that matter. I just don't think that my tax money should pay for it. Now, if my tax money is not paying for the Bibles at the courthouse, maybe somebody with the government could have informed me of that. And if they're donated free, I'd like to know about that too. We're in an open society. This is not a theocracy. The religion is not the law. And we're not in Saudi Arabia. We're in the United States of America. We need to be open. Now that I've cleared the air on that. Security at the courthouse. I was going through where they check you for security and they check you for metal. But I raised concern to one of the deputies that they're not checking for plastic weapons like guns and plastic knives. This was the response I got. You need to quit talking like that. Like a little 2-year-old child. He's not cooperating with Homeland Security. Now, we got a sheriff over here that I contacted with my complaint. He won't return my phone calls. That would be Sheriff Riley. Now, he makes big money. I know he's a good guy. That's why I voted for him. But he won't return my phone calls when I'm concerned about Homeland Security. I'm treated like I robbed a bank over at the courthouse when I pose a legitimate concern for myself and my fellow citizens. Now that we've cleared the air on that, I'm concerned about child molesters over at the Concord Police Department. I think we might have some child molesters over at the Concord Police Department. Notice of recent, there's been a lot of teachers and a lot of police around the country arrested for sex crimes against kids. Remember, it's all about the kids at our schools. I'm worried about kids at our schools and in the community and otherwise. I myself am proud to say I've never harmed a child or a woman in my life, but a lot of these police have. There's over 40 cases of domestic violence in Charlotte where law enforcement's been involved, cases not adjudicated. Too many things going on that don't make sense. We've got to be leery of these pillars of the community in positions of authority. Now, these priests, these teachers, these police, they're putting your kids at risk. They're doing it very subtly, and they're getting away with it. I don't trust the police. Remember, it was the police in New Orleans that almost got away with murder had it not been for the liberal press. I'm a liberal. Thank God for the liberal press. I tell you something, Adolf Hitler, if he was here today, he'd like stuff like that. He'd like the idea of the police getting away with molesting kids. Now, up here in Kansas, as I stated before, there was a chief of police there just recently, forced rape, 8, 9, 10-year-old kids, forced rape, chief of police, pillar of the community. Watch your children, be careful.
Next would be Mr. Larry Marlowe. Mr. Marlowe?
I'm Larry Marlowe. I live on 664 Odell School Road. I'm going to read what I got to say to make sure I get it right, or try to anyhow. I want to say thank you to all of y'all for keeping the tax rate at 63 cents. At the end of the year, it gets harder to pay it when it goes up, and that's what I'm going to speak against tonight. However, in May, we will be having a vote to increase the sales tax 1/4 of 1%, which comes to 1 penny for every $4 you spend. And would you rather pay that now or pay more property tax at the end of the year? So you can see how much easier it'd be. At times when voting on tax increases, it puts a sour taste in our mouths, but this increase is necessary. Our county needs to raise $5 million for schools next year, and if we don't vote for this increase, the property tax will probably increase at least 5 cents per $100. Go from 63% to 68%. Non-residents who shop here will help raise the necessary funds for our schools through additional sales tax. So anybody comes in and buys anything, they'll help pay for our schools, and I'm sure they'll appreciate that. Please come out and vote and bring your neighbors to vote for the tax increase. And please talk about it and don't let the vote just go and not do it, because if you don't vote for it, you're going to pay at the end of the year. So this is one sales tax we need to do. And if you can't afford a penny for every $4, I'll be glad to help you. I'll give you a couple pennies. Thank you. And could I say something? It's probably off the record, but I have a real close friend that's having a birthday Thursday, and I'd like to say happy birthday to her. It's my wife, Sharon. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Marlowe. Next matter we're going into new business. The first would be G1 is the text 2011-00001 ethanol fuel production. At this point in time, I call on Mrs. Morris to present this to us.
Good evening. This is a proposed text amendment to add ethanol fuel production to the ordinance. As we talked about at the work session, it would add it to residential districts for private use only, and then would also add it to the general industrial district as a small plant and a medium plant. What you have in front of you would add a definition to the ordinance of what the ethanol fuel production facility is. For the residential district, there are some standards that are associated with that. We talked about distance requirements at the work session, and also about storage. As far as the general industrial districts, the medium plant, they would have to have a minimum of 5 acres in order to be allowed to have a medium plant. The small plant does not have a size limitation to it. And then it would also add, amend the tables in the ordinance and anywhere else, the list where we would need to change to add it as a permitted use. And I'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Are there any questions for Mrs. Morris? Mrs. Morris, a couple of questions is, what I was looking at is uses in the high-density residential mixed-use zone. Do you have any of this paperwork in front of you?
I don't, and we are not proposing it in the HDR district.
Well, that's what I was going to ask, because it says permitted based on standards, parentheses, PBS in parentheses. And it says ethanol production small plant, ethanol production medium plant. Would that be a typo?
in the,
I'm looking at page 166, then on to 167. Chapter 3, Establishment of Zones.
it is only listed, it's permitted based on standards in general industrial. Are you looking at the table?
I'm looking at
Or are you looking at the list?
the list. It says permitted uses, and then it says permitted based on standards, parentheses, PBS, in parentheses, communications towers, and then in red ink, ethanol production small plant, ethanol production medium plant.
The page that you have.
Yes.
And I apologize, but the page that you have, which is page 320 of the ordinance.
3-20, yes.
Yes, that is actually the list that is not the list for high-density residential. That is the list for general industrial. I think it was maybe typed at the top there somewhere.
Right. Okay, that's what I wanted to make certain.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, so it's a different section, but instead of putting all of those pages in there, we just captured that page that would be changed.
So that if we were to approve it tonight, it's only in what area, so we make certain?
The small and medium plants, which would actually be plants, are only permitted in the general industrial district. The personal use, which is classified as a small plant, but that would have those restrictions based on it, would be in the residential districts.
Okay. Any other questions for Mrs. Morris? I'll open this up for a public hearing. If anybody would like to speak for or against the amendment to this request, I know that Mr. Yurty, would you like, if you'll come up and let us know where you live and tell us what you are speaking, if you'll let us know if you're speaking for or against, and then go forward.
My name is Danny Yurty. I live on Rocky River Road, 5959. I'm speaking for it. It was my inquiries back in the fall and winter that resulted in the writing of these draft provisions. My primary concerns about the way things are written here involve the zoning of setbacks and the amount of setbacks. The federal agency that handles the ethanol fuel production permitting is the TTB. They require a 50-foot clearance to dwelling units. The way and what I may have is an old draft, but it requires a 60-foot to a dwelling unit, but in addition, a 100-foot setback from a property line. In researching this, I found that if I were trying to have a convenience store with a gas station with a couple of pumps, with the 3¼ acres that I own, if it were properly situated on the right road, there'd be a requirement of 41 feet from the property line to the gas pumps or the building. And it's my contention that the required setbacks are a bit of an overreaction or excessive in somewhat restrictive in allowing the use of it. That is, of course, my personal opinion. I'm open to any questions. That's basically what I had to say.
Are there any questions for Mr. Yurty? This concept, it would not be a buried tank. It would be a tank above ground, correct?
It would only involve what my proposal, what I was trying to do, didn't involve a tank per se. I wanted to utilize a distillation column to produce 5 gallons at a time for my personal use on my property.
Well, what I'm saying is the difference between a convenience store or a gas pump is those tanks are buried in the ground.
Right.
And although there may be a pump above ground, there is a shutoff, there's an automatic shutoff valve.
Right.
Is so that I would see that as a differentiation in regards to.
Well, the point about that I thought was of note is that virtually anybody can drive up and pump gasoline. There's no one there to safeguard them from lighting a cigarette or pumping it into an unapproved container, etc. Someone that has the knowledge to be able to produce ethanol would have a certain degree of expertise in the handling of it.
Okay.
That's basically it.
Great. Any other, Commissioner CARRUTH?
Just one question. And I know that we discussed it in our work session about the production, the home production or small production of ethanol. And of course, it has to be approved by the federal government to be able to get a permit to do it. Is there an industry standard, like an ANSI standard, that dictates how I don't want to use the word still set up, but a distillery did
There's no
operation?
standard that restricts the actual setup. However, for distillation for ethanol fuel use, it requires an apparatus that is unsuitable for consumption.
Right, exactly.
It extracts the flavors, everything,
right.
in getting a very pure product.
And I was thinking more about the safety features and the safety, things
Right.
you have to have with the equipment.
Back in December, I submitted my application to the TTB, and it was approved the 7th of March.
Okay.
And in that was a site drawing showing the locations of the various buildings that I would be using.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Yurdy.
Thank you.
I will close it. Anybody else would like to speak for or against? Mr. Crutchfield? If you'll let us know if you're for it or against it and tell us why.
Well, I want to say I'm for it, but I'd be lying to you, so I'm kind of undecided. And can I tell you why?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I mentioned Homeland Security a minute ago. Now, isn't this a flammable mixture we're dealing with here?
Yes, sir.
Okay, well now, with the billions and billions of dollars spent for Homeland Security, we've got these communication centers in every state where local, state, and federal authorities share information. Wouldn't we need to put that operation in a data bank for Homeland Security so they could monitor that? Because that's a flammable liquid, and the terrorists, they might come down on Rocky River Road and take it over and use it for a bomb.
Well, if they can use 5 gallons, then. But anyway, thank you, Mr. Crutchfield. We have I'm going to close this public hearing. Is there any further discussion from this board?
Just a comment. I mean, the whole point of us discussing this tonight is just that it isn't anywhere in our ordinance, and we need to have it somewhere in the ordinance that will address it so that this doesn't become a bigger issue further down the road. Is that correct, staff?
Yes.
Yeah. I just wanted to clarify that to make sure that everybody, it's one of those when this one came up, trying to wonder why we were talking about ethanol. I think some other people are kind of wondering the same thing, but it's similar to some other issues. If it's not addressed in the ordinance, then we need to address it in the ordinance, and that's the reason that this is coming before us.
Do we have a motion to approve the text amendment or a motion or an otherwise motion?
I move we approve the amendment.
Okay. We have a second.
Second.
We have a motion. We have a second. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Next is G2, which is, this is the appeal of a rezoning case RZON 2010-00007 and public hearing. I understand that this may be withdrawn. At this time, Mrs. Covington and Mr. Barnes, would y'all like to let us know, are you going to proceed or withdraw? If you'll come up to the microphone.
Mr. Chairman, I told Mr. Barnes, Ms. Covington, that I would sort of lay out the background for this, and then they can speak briefly concerning it, because we had a short discussion before the meeting about this. The background on this is that this was a rezoning of some property at 12475 Pioneer Mill Road, and it bears parcel number 5524-475954. a man by the name of Steve Fisher had entered into a contract with Patricia Barr. And Patricia Barr is the mother of Miss Covington and Mr. Barnes and 3 of their siblings. And at that time, she and Mr. Fisher agreed that he would buy the property on condition that he could have it rezoned. So there was a rezoning application that was submitted last year by them. In the meantime, there was some opposition, and it was approved at the Planning and Zoning meeting, but then appealed properly to be considered by this board. In the meantime, their mother passed, and the property now belongs to Ms. Covington, Mr. Barnes, and the other 3 siblings, one of whom is Patrice Moore, who I've been in some contact with. Because of the circumstances, Mr. Fisher has now decided to withdraw his part of the application for the rezoning and is no longer under contract to buy the property. And then the issue became whether the owners, the actual owners at this point, would also wish to withdraw. And because your brothers and sisters are spread out a bit, and I think you folks are from Robbins, North Carolina, have come over this evening, they have had some discussions in the meantime, and I think that they have decided that it would be best to go ahead and withdraw the application. That way they'll have the opportunity to apply for a rezoning if necessary when they ultimately find a buyer. Okay. They have been in touch with their siblings this evening, and I've also talked with your sister Patrice Moore earlier today, and she indicated to me orally that she wanted to withdraw. You all in our discussion just a little while ago had indicated the same thing, and they just wish to do that for the record, for the minutes this evening, that from the owner's perspective, after consultation with the other brother and sister, that they wish to withdraw the application at this time, and that will essentially cause the entire matter to be withdrawn.
Okay. Is that correct, Mrs. Covington and Mr. Barnes?
On behalf of my brothers and sisters and myself, we withdraw.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you all for coming. There's no vote that we need to do at this point in time since it is withdrawn.
You don't need to take any other action.
Thank you. Next matter is G3, which is the Food Policy Council 2011 Retreat Report and Mission. I would call on Mr. Newton at this time. Yes, sir.
Actually, this evening addressing the Board of Commissioners is Chris Jones of Cisco and Lisa Wackeldorf, who's the market manager for Piedmont Farmers Market.
Okay. Thank you all.
Good evening.
Good evening.
One thing I want to start with, my name is Chris Jones. Lived here in Cabarrus County for 5 years now. Moved here from a very large adjoining county, and a year ago I saw something in the paper of needing some applicants to look at where the county was going to go in its future with food. I thought, that's me. And luckily I was able to join, and we have done some good things. It's been almost a year this coming June. I'm proud to have been asked, and along with all my other appointees as well. You know, we come from a lot of different backgrounds. There's chefs, there's bankers, there's homemakers. There's a lot of different people with a lot of different perspectives and a lot of opinions as well. And they look at, some of them look at the big bad company like I work for as they look at it and say, oh, but then, you know, there's other ways of looking at how business is done. And that's kind of where we're going. We want to change how business is done, especially in this county, because it's a very good county to live in. One of the things that we did in our February meeting is we came up with our mission statement. And our mission statement says, to nurture a sustainable local food system that benefits all citizens of Cabarrus County and our region. And it says a lot, it encompasses a lot. So we have a lot more work to do, and we hope you continue to support that. Also, one of the things we came up with is our 2011 council goals. One of them is to create a plan to make locally grown foods easier to purchase. B, develop local food and local school policy. Identify barriers. Why is there so little vegetable and fruit production in Cabarrus County? Host a summit to honor all local farming efforts and address the city and country divide where we're at and where our county needs to go with the rest of the country. Establish one successful schoolyard garden and one successful community garden as well. Now, one of the things we have done is we have done our logo, Cabarrus County Local Foods logo. And Lisa, if you would like to talk about that.
I would. Now, we at the Food Policy Council know that the more we strengthen the connection between the farmer and the citizen, the more sustainable we become as a community. And this is what the Food Policy Council had in mind when we developed our locally grown logo. Now, farmers often have limited resources and limited time, especially in the summer, for marketing their products. And we wanted to work together with them to build a brand identity for locally grown and processed foods, as consumers are wanting to know where locally grown food is available for them to purchase. Now, helping farmers market their products is a very high priority with the FPC. So the Marketing, Outreach, Education, and Economic Development Committee was created, and our first project was the creation of an image or logo for locally grown food. Our intention is for this to benefit Cabarrus County for years to come. Now, none of the committee members is an artist, but we all shared in the vision. And local graphic designer Jason Callahan brought the vision to life for us. Over a period of several months, the logo underwent a range of changes from illegible chicken scratch to elaborate arrangements of vines and cornucopias featuring all the fruits and vegetables you could possibly imagine, some which we can't even grow here. Jason listened very carefully to our feedback and our input, and we finally arrived at what we have with us today. The logo's iconic simplicity carries a great deal of meaning without being ostentatious or overstated. It is a succinct package of words and artwork that we hope the farmers and the public identify with in its integral role in building our local food system. We hope all the citizens of Cabarrus County will be as proud of the logo as we are and see it as a beacon of community solidarity and all that is delicious and nutritious for their dinner tables. Is that what you're?
Are there any questions or any comments that anyone would care to make?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
In regards to the locally grown, the symbol or the logo, is that up on the screen over there? Okay. We need to make certain that gets put up so everybody knows. Now, the idea behind it is at the farmer's market or wherever, if this is shown, we know that it's grown here in Cabarrus County.
Yes, sir.
That's the concept.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
There is quite a bit of work left to do as to our standards and how it will be shown, so, but yes.
And in regards to y'all's goals, one of the goals is to honor all local farming efforts, that is vegetables as well as meat grown.
Yes,
not
sir.
just, it's not one segment or another.
That's correct, yes, sir.
And the farmer's market, is there a lot of people coming there now? How's the use? Have you seen any upticks, anything like that?
Actually, this is the second year the market has been open year-round, and it just keeps growing and growing. It gets better each and every year. Our opening day is this coming Saturday. This past Saturday, we had the Herb Festival, and it was a wonderful festival despite the raining coming in sideways. So.
Right. And in regards to the farmer's market, there are several locations throughout the county.
That is true. That is true. We have markets. We have 3 in 2 different locations in Kannapolis, one in downtown Concord, and one in Harrisburg.
Okay. Any other questions? Commissioner Meisner.
I would just like to say, being in the food business myself, I appreciate what you're doing, and I'm excited to see where the council will go. I do have a question under the 2011 goals. Number 5, establish 1 successful schoolyard garden and 1 successful community garden. Is there any progress on that, or what's the proposal?
One of our boards has started a preliminary one in Kannapolis. So.
And that's the community?
Yes, in the community garden aspect, yes.
Is there any talk about where the school garden may be, or,
Where's there? Where was it?
Perhaps, okay.
Around McAllister, yes.
Okay.
So there's several. Actually, in my own neighborhood, we came up with one this year ourselves, where I live. And as far as the farmer's market in Harrisburg, where I live, when I first started just a few years ago, there was only a few tables out there. Now it's 20, 30 tables probably.
It'll be
Yeah.
20 or 30 this year. We're going to
Yeah.
have to limit because it's such a successful market for the farmers. It is also a very popular market.
That's excellent.
It is excellent.
As it relates to the community garden, I was listening to a show on one Saturday morning at WBT, and they were talking about a community garden. Where can a community, such as a subdivision, if homeowners want to use, with their permission, use, land, vacant land that's there?
Right.
How do they figure out, well, what do we put in the garden? Who's going to manage the garden? Where do they get the frequently asked questions and things we do so we don't fail?
Well, in our neighborhood, one of our homeowners, of course, took it on. And I helped with some direction as to going to local websites in Cabarrus County, the extension office, things like that. So if you have homeowners association does have their own land or common areas that they can use, and the board of directors gives their permission, then you can do it.
Okay. Now, would that information be on the Food Policy Council's website from the county, or is it, where can somebody go so they can have one snapshot to get started, I should say? Is that something that could be put on the Food Policy Council website? Okay.
Absolutely. And the Cooperative Extension has quite a bit of information about that as well on their website. Yes,
Great.
sir.
Thank you very much. Anything else? Thank you all very much for all y'all doing.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Next we have is APAC resolution to establish a proactive animal adoption community. Commissioner CARRUTH.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Tonight, and we've had this discussion in our work session, and concerning a lot of work has been done. In fact, it's kind of ironic. I was sitting here thinking as we had Food Council report kind of paralleling each other. I think one night, in fact, we were both meeting up here at the same time. We have a committee was put together by this board back actually about 7 years ago, and then we adapted it last year and added some folks to it, and in light of a desire, I believe, to move forward and move us to the next level as far as our animal rescue efforts were here in the county. I just wanted to take a couple of seconds, and of course, somebody's already reminded me that if they want them to support this thing, I will not read all of this verbatim, so I will hit the high points. But we are, just be aware that we are bound by law in public health and public safety arena to control a stray and wild animal population that wander in our neighborhoods. And I think, in fact, some counties in the state, it's the health department actually handles it because it's a public health issue. And I see Dr. Pilkington here and Mr. Phillips that one time this was handled by the health department, to do animal control. We have been, we are required to hold animals a certain period of time after they are captured by animal control to see if the owner will reclaim them. If the owner doesn't reclaim them, then we have an issue. And the issue is that do we just euthanize 100% of the animals at that point and put them all down? Or do we run some kind of public shelter where we can hopefully readopt those animals out to families that may want to come in and get those dogs and cats out of the shelter? We've had, over the last 15 years, almost an informal relationship with the Humane Society, who occupies space at our shelter, who has adopted some of those animals, but not all of them. And we have many rescue groups, rescue groups here in the county that have been, where every week, literally hundreds of volunteers are out working, walking dogs and walking cats. Assuming people walk a cat on a leash, but they're tending to cats. They're working with dogs, and sometimes it's not a glamorous job to do. It's a very thankless job at times, in which that in a very emotionally draining job, especially when you have to look at a dog that has to be euthanized because of severe health issues or because it's been abused so severely by an owner. And so what we did was that we felt that there's a way that we can move ourselves to the next level. At one time, we were euthanizing 80 and 90% of animals in this, companion animals that came into animal control. That number, I'm thankful to say tonight, is coming down. I mentioned that, I believe, last month at this meeting at our work session. But what we have been working very hard, and again, we had a very strong diversity of opinions on our committee as well. But it took several months to work out the language of the resolution. But I'd like to read the resolution tonight and ask for its adoption. I know that we still have got to discuss how to, funding, if there's any funding that can be made available. I'm going to be pushing for that. I hope you understand that. I know that times are tight. I know we're in a rough budget cycle the next couple of years, but I'm still going to be advocating that we look at some way, somehow, that we can do what I believe is the linchpin to this whole program, and that is to have someone that is a central coordinator, not to consolidate all the animal control, all the animal rescue groups, but somebody that can manage the program and that can work with the various rescue groups in the community and move the animal adoption program to the next level, so that we're managing and showing some sort of caring for this special population of animals in our community, and that's the ones that have been found homeless. And so I would like to read the resolution and then would put that in the form of motion for us to approve it. Whereas Cabarrus County is a leader in public service innovation and delivery, whereas Cabarrus County has repeatedly been recognized for its strong regard for the volunteer efforts of its citizens to address community-wide issues, where in accordance with North Carolina general statutes, county governments may establish, equip, operate, and maintain an animal shelter which is regulated by the North Carolina Department of Agriculture, whereas that protection and care of animals is a legitimate and compelling public interest, as the killing of adoptable domestic animals is a practice that should be brought to an end, whereas the existing county model for processing and adopting homeless and lost animals in the community is not adequate to keep up with this animal intake volume of a growing community, whereas adoptable domestic animals will be determined by our Cabarrus County pet evaluation matrix, and this matrix will also be used to determine the parameters for euthanizing domestic animals in the future, whereas the following principles and practices can achieve an acceptable adoption rate and potentially end the euthanasia of adoptable domestic animals. There is a compassionate, proactive adoption program director who will implement community involvement initiatives, a proactive pet adoption program, a rescue group network that is cooperative and supportive of the proactive adoption program, a trained and organized volunteer organization, a properly trained and maintained foster home volunteer organization, community education of the importance of spay and neuter, vaccination, heartworm prevention, and pet care, formal feral cat trap, neuter, and return programs, low-cost, high-volume spay and neuter program includes community outreach, efficient and reliable pet retrieval and return process, a medical and behavioral pet evaluation matrix for shelter dogs and cats, a do not adopt to database, and comprehensive enforcement investigation of animal cruelty complaints and animal control community outreach. Whereas several well-organized and qualified animal rescue organizations, and I will say that most of these things are being covered by rescue organizations that currently exist in the county, being done by the private sector. They currently follow many of these principles and provide many of the programs. And whereas the new organizational model will aggressively incorporate and engage all our rescue organizations in our community, then this proclamation will be that the Board of Commissioners resolves and directs that the following three actions will take place. Any 501c3 chartered rescue organization in good standing with Cabarrus County Animal Control will be allowed access to the Cabarrus County Animal Shelter for the purpose of adopting domestic animals. Number two, that this board will commence with a process to enter into a formal relationship with one or more rescue groups in the community to outsource its public animal shelter operations based on criteria determined by the APPAC. And then third, the APPAC will provide to this board an evaluation matrix to be used to determine the adoptability of domestic animals that are processed and sheltered at the Cabarrus County Animal Shelter. B, develop criteria to be used by Cabarrus County officials to define success for the community's proactive adoption program. And C, going forward, to provide oversight to the community proactive adoption program and ensure all performance standards are being followed.
Excuse me, that comes in the form of a motion from Commissioner CARRUTH. Is there a second to that motion? I'll make a second to that motion because I think if there's some discussion that needs to be made in regards to this matter. My discussion is that we are in a tight budget year, and I think that at this point in time, that the most that has been identified in regards to money is about $16,000. And that at this point in time, my support of this resolution would be limited to, subject to, one, having any money for this process, as well as two, not to exceed $16,000 as I see it right now. So those are the two concerns that I have. The third concern that comes up to my mind is that the thought or the understanding is that the Humane Society is willing to step up and take an active role in this, let me see here, outsourcing or setting up more of adopted domestic animals. If they do not, if they, that this has all been beliefs and suppositions, now it's time the tire hits the, the rubber hits the road. And if they don't step up, where does it lead us? So the concerns that I have is finances, and then taking on that next step. And so that as we, if this passes, as we move forward, those will be my concerns, and those will be things I'll be voicing. Is I think it's very good. I think that opening up the shelter to, well, not opening it up because it's already been open to everybody to come in and adopt, but have it more accessible to everyone to adopt. I think that's very important. But I am concerned is that when it comes to funding, how much more funding is necessary in regards to an agency that will be able to step up and take on that responsibility.
Yeah.
So,
I'd like to just maybe address a couple of those and talk about that a little bit because, as you know, in our work session, we did have the Executive Director of the Humane Society, Judy Sims, that came and talked to us. And there's been some discussion among the committee members about how that would happen. And she's going to, I think, we'll bring back to us at our May work session some figures on what she's looking at as far as the salary range or what we're looking at as far as this position would be concerned. The Humane Society, and it was after discussion of the committee, there was talk about who would take this on. And it was determined that Humane Society right now has got the organizational ability to be able to do it. And I know that, believe that a conversation I had with Commissioner Meismer concerned about some things with the Humane Society and maybe differences of opinion about how things are done. And I think it's very important for us to realize is that there's the Humane Society, which is the shelter that is adopting animals out. And what we're talking about here is almost a layer that the Humane Society would be operating underneath their umbrella. But there would be a separation between what the animals, when they come in through this program and are evaluated and dispersed to the various animal shelters, would be a difference between what this program does, and what is being done internally right now in the Humane Society as far as their adoptions are concerned. It may be that animals come in and through this program and end up with one of the other rescue groups, or it could end up with the Humane Society, and then they would have their own adoption procedures, how they would proceed from there. As far as the cost, tonight I can tell you that, yeah, $16,000 is identified as that money. I'm hoping that we can just somehow or another find money some more money, because I'll be honest with you, I think that trust me, I'm sitting here looking at the fact that this weekend the governor decided to veto an unemployment extension bill that had rather than obligate herself to cutting the budget at state level. And we hear all kinds of postures out of Washington about cutting budgets and things like that. $50,000, I figured it up based on a $20 billion property assessment or property values. $50,000 comes out to somewhere around 50 cents per household per year in Cabarrus County. And so it's a very, and I know that just the principle of adding, of funding a new program, we're just going to be very difficult with a budget year, but we need to understand it. I think the public needs to understand that we're not talking about a tremendous amount of funds needed to, I believe, be a catalyst that will kick off this and get this rolling and move it to the next level. So, but anyway, and I'm willing to, in that motion, to say that if it'd be contingent on staffing, but I believe we'll find in the resolution that we can approve the resolution independent of any funding commitment at this point in time, because pretty much what we're saying is here's the principles that we want to see our public adoption program operate under. We would like to see the role, even if it turns out to be a volunteer, of somebody to step forward that would coordinate the program. And, but I think the best way to do it is going to be to do it through one of the existing rescue groups rather than trying to create something ourselves at animal control. So,
Well, one thing about the staffing is it does not show in the resolution that there's any staffing from.
All it says is a principle there that they would have.
That we contract to an outside agency.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is there any other discussion? Commissioner Meismer?
The resolution, I agree with a lot of the principles within the resolution. However, I wish this was more of a formal request rather than, vague language of what's going to happen. I would rather see, this is what's going to happen, A, B, C. With the pet matrix, I don't know any details about that whatsoever.
Right.
I would rather see that more concrete information before we pass vague language of a resolution that I don't know where it's going to go. I would rather have more direction from a formal request with the finances as well as, the logistics of how this would work.
The biggest thing to understand, I think, too, is that regardless of whether we go with this program or not, the fact remains we still have stray animals being picked up, being brought to animal control, and we still have to deal with those in some way. And we either deal with them by operating their shelter ourselves and adopting them out ourselves, deciding we're going to stop all adoptions. There have been a couple counties that have just done that and said we're not going to adopt any animals out. Or they're taking advantage and going to what is a very highly developed private network throughout our community and saying, we'd like for you to take this on. And I think that, and I understand what you're saying, because there is still got to be some discussion about the pet matrix, is what is considered adoptable versus unadoptable. How do we report these stats? And those are the next steps that, once this is, I feel like that once we get the resolution approved, that this is the direction we want to head in and moving towards this, that there'll be a new direction for the APAC to go and do that. And, I'm not, and I understand what you're saying is that there's still details to be worked out. I mean, it is vague, and I don't know whether we can get to that concrete of thing without, knowing it, without knowing which direction we're going to head and what we want to do as a board. I think it's, more than anything else, just kind of creates our intent as a board of what we want to see happen. So.
Yeah, I would think that there's still a lot more discussion that would have to be had.
There's going to be a ton of discussion.
I somewhat feel like this would be putting the cart before the horse. And I would just rather see concrete requests come from this. So,
yeah, and I see a follow-on to this would be coming back and saying, once we commence a discussion with the Humane Society, I can see coming back that there may be other things that be brought up that would be brought back to us that we would have to consider. As far as how there would have to be a formal agreement worked out, how that's drawn up between us and the Humane Society. There would have to be many details that would have to be put together in that. But what this, I just see, like I say, it's just a beginning, and sometimes you have to make a commitment at the beginning before you.
Well, I also would like to ask, I understand, the stray animals that, we're responsible for, and that, that's something that we have to take care of. However, the Humane Society is informally operating or assisting with the adoption of the animals, I guess, among some other groups, helping out. If they're already doing that now, what's stopping someone from adopting an animal now? How will a position or a director, directly impact this, and how will, what's the plan to bring, the adoption rate up if we hire a director?
Well,
we won't, but if we contract.
The thing is just, like I said, back in the principles here of what is created when you have that one person. You have one person that is, pulling all the resources together. Right now you have, I know one group in the county that is doing trap, neuter, release programs. Another group has a very well-developed foster care network. They all do adoptions at various times, but there's not, in the past, none of them, they have not all worked that well together. And what this does, it creates one person to kind of spearhead the effort to help build cooperation among the groups. I think there was maybe some thought that was generated by some comments I made at maybe our last meeting that there is no move to consolidate. I think that would be a disaster because these are private organizations you have here. But I think what this person would be responsible for is identifying what those groups can do, help build some synergy between those groups to get them working closer together and develop some community-wide events in which they can bring together. I see this person not necessarily, although they have a passion for animal rescue, I see this person as much being somebody that has the ability to raise funds. I see somebody that has the ability to raise a volunteer network and somebody that has a business mind to be able to put together, this whole program and take the pieces that are out there. It's kind of like a puzzle sitting there that's been unassembled, taking those pieces of the puzzle and putting it together in order to achieve these principles and put these principles in place.
Okay. So, Commissioner Burge.
Is this going to take the sheriff's department out of it?
It won't take them out on the animal control side. They'll still be responsible for all the enforcement.
They'll still pick up strays and
Yeah,
all
they'll still
that.
pick up all the strays. There won't be any change
Why
there.
don't we just leave the whole system voluntarily? Let volunteers take care of it.
Well, volunteers are taking care of it.
Well,
It's
that's
just
why
there's
don't we
not-
just keep doing that instead of paying somebody,
Well,
using county funds? You talk about 50 cents a year, you add 50 cents here and 50 cents somewhere else. Later on, you're talking about some senior citizens, some young people that can't pay their taxes, much less add all this stuff on.
I understand that, Mr. Burge. I think the biggest thing we got to, what I'm saying is that I think the committee recognizes it. I think the rescue groups recognize it, whether it's funded or not funded. There's still a role needed for someone to, and as I pointed out in email to someone this past week, the 3 attributes of that person, I said about having the business skills, I think the top 3 attributes they got to have is, number 1, be a strong leader. Number 2, be a strong leader. Number 3, be a strong leader. So,
Why don't we set the fines and the fees high enough to cover somebody?
I mean, we've got all kinds of options about how we can, how that can be.
I'd
how
rather
we can
do that
fund
than
something
use
like this.
taxpayers' money.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I think that we have that discussion about how can we do this if we can do it. And like I say, I think that the rescue groups have been doing it very good without, on a volunteer basis. But I think that, and I think that the $16,000 is all they get, then that certainly is a start. But I think that if we look at this as something we have to deal with, whether we deal with it ourselves or work with it, outside groups to do it for us. So.
Which you only been talking about this, 25 years?
Yeah, it has been. It's not been an easy. It's not been an easy. I guess an easy task to take on. So.
I think for me, I would like to see. I understand the point behind a resolution in order to move forward with the group and to come up with an idea of where the county commissioners want to go with animal adoption. So I understand the reason for having the resolution. My concern would be the funding aspect, which we don't have. When we talked about it 2 weeks ago, I was more comfortable, I guess, with the resolution because it's a nice resolution, it gives an idea of where to go, but at the same time, depending on what happens in the budget process, that may or may not be supported. This resolution may or may not be supported with the budget. And we have not had any budget discussions at this point in time. I've had a lot of people ask where we are on our budget discussions. I don't think the general population understands that our staff has been working extremely hard, and I'm very thankful to our staff for the work they've done. And the number of entities that we fund have been working very hard on their budgets to come forward, and all of those pieces have to come together for us to make a determination of, what the final budget for the county will be for the next year. Listening to the other comments, I don't know if there is a desire. I guess I'd like to get the motion restated, because I think you amended the motion to limit it to a set amount. I guess I'm wondering if it would be advisable to table this for the budget discussions, to make sure that, if I heard the amended motion correctly, that doesn't become more of an issue as this group proceeds. I guess that's a question that I would place to Commissioner White and Commissioner CARRUTH on how either of you think that we should move forward.
Well, as the resolution was read, I understood that it's in the form of a motion, and the motion would be that the Cabarrus Board of Commissioners resolves and directs the following actions be initiated immediately. Any 501c3 chartered rescue organization in good standing with Cabarrus County Animal Control will be allowed access to the Cabarrus County Animal Shelter for the purpose of adopting domestic animals. 2, the Cabarrus County Board of Commissioners will commence with the process to enter into a formal relationship with one or more rescue groups in the community to outsource its public animal shelter operations based on criteria determined by the APPAC, or Animal Preservation Protection Advisory Committee. And then 3, the APPAC will provide to the County Board of Commissioners an evaluation matrix to be used to determine the adoptability of domestic animals that are processed and sheltered at the Cabarrus County Animal Shelter. B, develop criteria to be used by the Cabarrus County officials to define success for the community's proactive adoption program. And C, going forward, to provide oversight to the community proactive adoption program and ensure all performance standards are being followed. That is the motion. My statement about the going forward is that I would not support, at this point in time, any additional monies other than what we are paying right now, which would be roughly $16,000. And I think that if any additional monies are to be discussed, this does not reference any monies. There's no cost, there's no expense that I can see in this resolution is going to be borne by the Board of Commissioners or the county as it relates to adopting this resolution. So you did not add that? I did not add that.
That's what I needed to clarify.
I was just stating my position is that although this is maybe a starting point, there is no indication about any monies. And I don't think that I think that the rescue groups, they're right here now, and that in moving forward, that a position or a contractual position with the county would not include any additional funds, if any funds, that we're expending at this point in time.
Okay, I appreciate your clarifying the motion. That's what I wanted to make sure that you had not amended the motion.
I have not amended the motion.
Then I'm fine without it being amended.
We don't take straw polls, but from a parliamentarian standpoint, there's been a lot of work go into this. Mm-hmm. I mean, hours and hours, a lot of tears and sweat. Sometimes I thought even blood was going to be shed over it. I would rather than bringing this up tonight, having it voted down, and I'm not sure how we can do about then bringing it back up at our next meeting, I would rather table this to May, knowing we can get some of the financial questions answered from the Humane Society or May work session, than to see it go down and discuss it further at the May work session. And as we get into the budget, I still think it's just a first start. All it really does is say that we're opening up the animal shelter, formally saying the animal shelter is open to any rescue group, and we're saying that we're going to commence and start the discussion. if we're not going to approve the resolution, then are we not going to start the discussion? And if we don't ever start discussion, then we won't ever be able to vote on the resolution. So we're kind of in a quandary here, catch-22. And I understand perfectly, again, about the money situation. It distresses me, too, that we're in a situation we're in. But I would much rather, if y'all are not comfortable in voting for this tonight, to table it, than I would to see it voted down. And because I don't think that's going to send a message loud and clear if we vote this down tonight.
Well, I'll tell you this, is whether it gets voted on tonight or not, number one, in regards to allowing access to the shelter should be done, regardless of any vote tonight. Number two, or actually you go down to number three, is that I would think that APAC needs to be working on a matrix and everything as Commissioner Meismer had referenced. So that whether it gets voted on or not, whether it gets tabled or not, I think 1 and 3 ought to be already in.
Well, we're prepared the APAC is prepared to do that and prepared to pick back up where, because APAC really has not met since February when we tabled this then to this month to be able to get a lot of questions answered. And, I'd like to see us, and I think we agreed at our retreat that we wanted to get this thing dealt with as quickly as possible, but it's, we're now getting 4 months since our retreat, and we still haven't dealt with it. But that's and like I say, I know we can't take straw polls, but I sense that y'all feel more comfortable if we table this to May and give us time to talk more about the finances and the funds that. And
I don't have a problem with the resolution as long as there's no funds put into it.
Mm-hmm.
I think the reason we haven't dealt with it this far is there's not been some formal recommendations.
Well, the first recommendations came forward. The resolution as it is came forth to us in time for our January retreat. And we tabled it at our February retreat, tabled it until, I think February to this meeting this month. So I beg to differ there. It has been some formal recommendations that have been, available to us since January to this board. So.
Well, I agree with Commissioner White that we should have the rescue, number 1 and number 3 primarily, should be allowed to have access to animal shelter, and I think that's already happening. And I would hope that this committee is still working together to continue to go forward and to kind of put some more specifics into the program. My concern was that if the motion had been amended, and that's what I was double checking on.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Let me ask you
that
this.
was my main concern.
I apologize. Commissioner Caruth, would there be much consternation if we just remove paragraph or number 2, so we're actually voting on the resolution as 1 and 3?
I don't understand why.
Number 2 is just
number 2. I'm sorry. I was looking at B under number 3. So
number 2 is just commencing with the process to enter into a formal relationship. If we would remove that but have paragraphs 1 and paragraph 3 with its subsets. So it would read everybody should have access to the animal control shelter, and then 3, that the APAC will develop a matrix, criteria, and proactive adoption program.
We could do that.
Or would you rather just table the whole thing?
I would rather, depending on some more discussion, and table the entire thing than take that out, because if we're not going to do number 2, that means that we, by default, then are choosing that we're going to continue and we're going to manage it ourselves. Well, right now, that's being handled by our animal control officers. Okay. Are we going to put more pressure on them to handle the program, or C, which is, I think, really the position no one in the community wants to go to, and that's to say, okay, we're just not going to do anything. Right. And so we have to do, one of the things, we either have to do it as it is doing right now, shut down adoptions completely, or,
well, then why don't we do this?
Third party. The committee is very supportive of doing the third party, of going to a third party to do this, a private.
There's been a motion and a second.
Yeah.
Do you withdraw your motion?
I would be willing to withdraw my motion tonight, and we read till the May meeting. And then
May would be May the 2nd.
Well, at our regular May meeting, or we can discuss it at our May meeting work session, because by that time we should have some idea of what we're looking at as far as any cost or concern.
Do we have a motion to table this until our May 2nd work session to tentatively be placed on May the 16th?
I would second that then.
We have a motion, we have a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Next matter is G5, that is a resolution that I've asked to be placed on here. It is the resolution supporting a 1/4 cent county sales and use tax. What I asked for this to be placed on, and the reason why is that by law, we can ask for the referendum, which we have. That's going to be on May the 17th. And I think that I feel a responsibility as a elected official to support a sunset clause in there of 20 years and for it to be used for school capital improvements so that, in my previous discussions, and I think in one of the previous presentations that I made, is that I asked that if this were to be successful, that we actually have a line item in our budget showing what monies come in, where those monies are going, and if they are not expended in the full, then that money be set aside so that everybody knows what those monies are being spent on. So it should be spent for school capital improvements. I initially said school construction, and then over the time I started thinking, well, in my mind, I'm not a contractor. I would think working on a roof is construction. Somebody else may not think that's construction. So that I think if we're replacing a roof, that to me that's construction, but that's the reason why the change to capital improvements to address a situation of roofs or something of that nature. So that what we have before us is a resolution that I'm asking this board to consider and to adopt that says, whereas the population of Cabarrus County has swelled by 35% in the past decade and is now the 11th largest county in the state with 178,000 residents, the population explosion has put a strain on the public facilities and necessitated the construction of 17 new school facilities and 18 renovations or additions to current public school facilities at a total cost to the taxpayers of nearly $500 million. And Cabarrus County must continue to meet public school needs while paying off debt related to school construction projects. And it is important to provide Cabarrus County taxpayers with alternatives to the pressure to raise property taxes to address these and other county needs. And the levy of Article 46 1/4 cent county sales and use tax would provide a new county revenue source and would generate approximately $4.6 million annually for the county. And revenues from this proposed 1/4 cent sales tax would be used to pay off $500 million of debt for school capital improvements. And a sales tax is a fair tax which equally distributed among all residents, not just property owners, as well as among the approximately 4 million visitors to Cabarrus County each year. And the proposed 1/4 cent sales tax would not be levied on purchases of grocery food items, gasoline, and most prescription drugs. And if the proposed 1/4 cent sales tax levy does not pass, then equivalent property tax rate increase of 2.2 cents would be required. And it is the board's intent for the 1/4 cent sales tax to end in 20 years, and a low property tax rate is incentive for new businesses and industries seeking to relocate in this region, and also reduce economic strain felt by existing businesses and other property owners. Now therefore be it resolved that the Cabarrus County Board of Commissioners hereby supports the 1/4 cent sales tax referendum and encourages citizens to vote yes in the special election on May 17th, 2011. Is there any questions for myself at this time?
Well, Mr. Chairman, I'd just like to speak out, and I think Mr. Marlowe put it perfectly a while ago, and I think it's ironic that the date that we have scheduled for this is actually the beginning of the week of one of the first 2 weeks of when we see the biggest influx of visitors into Cabarrus County every year, and that's the week of the Sprint All-Star Race as well as the Coca-Cola 600. And I've heard, I don't know how many times in the last 10 years I've heard from people in all of this county saying, well, what in the world, how do some of those people visiting us, why can't we help pay for some of this stuff around here? This is your opportunity. The property tax, the state pretty much keeps, and putting stuff on us, moving stuff down to us from the state level. Very rarely does the state legislature give authority to counties to do something other than a property tax to help raise revenue. I don't know what percentage, whether it's 10, 20, 30% of our sales tax is paid by out-of-county visitors. Whatever it is, that percentage is the burden that we're taking off the local taxpayer by having a sales tax versus having a property tax increase, and if we've got the opportunity to do this, I think that we ought to support it. Again, as Mr. Marlowe pointed out a while ago, I'm not necessarily a fan of raising the taxes, but if we can move part of the burden off of our local property taxpayer and put some of that burden on some of the visitors that come and eat in our restaurants and drive on our roads and use our facilities when they're here visiting us, then that all so much the better. And I guarantee you that if you check Orange County, Florida, where Disney World is located at, I bet you has a very low property tax rate.
I presented this in the form of a motion, or I made a motion that we pass this resolution. Is there a second? We have a second. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed. Motion carries 5-0. Next matter that we have is on G6, and this was important that some time got away from us in regards to many things that were going on in April. And we passed some resolutions at the beginning of the month that I thought was important, and we thought it was important for the public to understand and know what was said. This month, the first proclamation, or one of the first proclamations that we passed, is recognizing and acknowledging 100 years of public health service to the residents of Cabarrus County and the immeasurable contribution of these services to the safety and quality of life in Cabarrus County. And we proclaimed April 2011 Public Health Month in Cabarrus County and recognize and celebrate the Health Alliance in commemorating 100 years of public service in Cabarrus County. I serve on that board, and I'm very proud of the fact of what Dr. Pilkington and everybody does over there. It's a thankless job. You don't see them. They're behind doors, working hard in many, many different areas. And the things that they do for this county as a whole is tremendous. And Chairman Phillips has done a tremendous job in leading that board and moving forward. Through that leadership, Cabarrus County has moved from 9th to 7th as the healthiest counties in Cabarrus County. And as we've previously said, we are 11th in size. There are a lot of firsts that this health department has done through the years, and as it relates to the Salk vaccination countywide in 1955, to being accredited, to just having a tremendous service here in the county. And for 100 years, that is tremendous. And there is, the minutes from the first meeting is very short, but it was the acceptance of 2 doctors to serve on the public health. If I'm missing anything, Chairman Phillips, if you would like to mention anything additional, but there's some tremendous things going on.
I just am delighted to be here to celebrate the excellence we have had in public health. It's been a delight for me to serve on that board. We have a bunch of very creative, talented, energetic, and capable people who go out and do great things, and then I get to stand up and take credit for it. So you can't beat that. You remember the E.F. Hutton ad when E.F. Hutton talks, people listen twice at state meetings. Between sessions, people have been in small groups, and I'd say, well, I'm from Cabarrus County. And everybody within about 30 feet would stop to listen to what I had to say. And that's not from anything I have done. It's from what the Health Alliance now, from the Health Department, the reputation that we have established as a premier public health agency. And I'm just delighted to be here to celebrate with you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Phillips. The next is a matter that we took care of last year, and this year was something we needed to step up and do it again, and it's proclamation of National Donate Life Month, and I'll turn it over to Commissioner Poole.
This was a request from a family member who is a nurse here in the county and is quite devoted to Life Share of the Carolinas and saving lives by participating in an organ, eye, and tissue donor registry. And April, we passed the proclamation that April be observed as National Donate Life Month, and that we would also fly their flag out front of this building for the month of April. And we would like to honor and recognize those persons who have been touched by a donation and those persons who have given of themselves to give people a second chance at life. And I appreciate the Commission, again, supporting National Donate Life Month.
The next matter that we had was the authorization of the auction sale of the Old Bethel School property. We have made a resolution to accept sealed bids for the property until 3 p.m. on Friday, May 6th, 2011, delivered to the office of John Day, County Manager, second floor of this building, the Governmental Center, 65 Church Street, Concord. All bids received shall be open in public, and the amount of each bid recorded. The record of bids shall be reported to the Board of Commissioners at their regular meeting on Monday, May 16th, 2011. We'll determine the highest responsible bidder of the property and will award the bid at its regular meeting, May 16th. They remain open and subject to acceptance until the Board of Commissioners awards the bids. This resolution was adopted, and the property, or was adopted. Was a couple of other things. It's the property's being sold as is and where is, and this is on our website, I believe. The next one that we had is a couple of resolutions in opposition to things that were presented in the legislature. One is requiring or adding to the county's budget without any resources to pay for it. The governor's budget, and there are some recommendations coming out of the legislature that is considering a plan that would move misdemeanants and felons currently housed in state prisons to county jails. And the gist of this resolution is that we would be required to house misdemeanants and felons that are serving 12 months or less in our local jail. The presentation to us at our work session would increase our budget by about $3.6 million. That it would automatically place us into overcapacity, and it would require a tremendous, or it'd just be a lot of a burden to us, irregardless of the $3 million, which would just be on the housing of them, not any other special programs or anything that the state may be required us to do, as well as qualifications differently than what they are right now. So that we passed a resolution that says, now therefore it be resolved, the Board of Commissioners does hereby strongly oppose any plan to pass down to counties the cost and liability of housing misdemeanants and felons by moving these inmates out of state prisons and into county jails, and calls for the Joint Appropriations Committee on Justice and Public Safety to reject such plans in the interest of public safety. And that is one that we passed. And then I believe finally another resolution that we passed is opposing the loss of county school construction dollars and the shift of state school funding responsibilities to the county. And this is an opposition to some things that are going on in regards to the governor's budget, as well as some discussions in Raleigh requiring or requesting that the county take on unfunded mandates and the loss of county revenues included in the governor's budget proposal, and that it is shifting the responsibility of paying for replacement school buses to the counties and statewide, not in Cabarrus County, but statewide. That's to the tune of about $56.9 million, and also eliminating our ability to receive various revenues from income tax, corporate income tax, and also the county lottery being reduced substantially. That is going to cost, throughout the state, counties, approximately $200 million. So it's a tremendous amount of money that the governor and our legislators in Raleigh are recommending that the county take on and be more responsible for financially, but not giving us the resources to cover that. In fact, taking some of that away, which we are adamantly opposed to. With that, is there anything that I've missed in regards to the resolutions that we passed, or anything that anybody would like to expound on those resolutions?
Mr. Chairman, to add a couple of items, a couple of things on those last two. One of them is that I did make mention of it a while ago that I don't know whether you noticed or not, there was a move, and I think the governor called it political extortion on the part of the legislature, because what they did was in the extension of unemployment benefits bill, which she was put to her at 8 o'clock Saturday morning, rather than Thursday, because that way she could not call them back into session, and that she had to either sign it or veto it. She expressed her desire to veto it, because what it included in there was provision that if a budget is not finalized and has not been approved and signed by the governor by June 30th, that they would be a 52-week continuing resolution, and the amount of funding to the state government would be cut 13% below the governor's proposed budget. She refused to sign that, and so a lot of people that are supposed to get unemployment benefits will not get unemployment benefits because she vetoed that, because she called it political extortion. But shows you the kind of the atmosphere that's going on right now in Raleigh. A proposal that $10 to fund, asking state employees to pay $10 a month for their health insurance, which was agreed upon, I believe, with the State Employees Association as a compromise between the legislature and State Employees Association. She vetoed that as well. So that, again, it's $570 million hole in the state health insurance plan. So there's a lot going on up there, and a lot of political battles going on right now about what's happening. I think we got to be very diligent in keeping our eyes open against what could sneak in against us. One thing I would point out, that at our meeting that Commissioner Poole and I went to earlier this week, or last week rather, the district meeting for the association, and the association has launched an initiative asking each board to have a meeting with their legislative delegation sometime before County Assembly Day on May 25th. And I'm not sure if we want to ask maybe our clerk to try to schedule a meeting with the legislative delegation, or if you'd like, I think the last legislative liaison was me, so or me to contact them about setting up something for us, a breakfast meeting or something, maybe a Friday or Saturday morning, to get together with them to discuss any issues that we may have with them, and just go over some of the things that we were concerned about. I'm not sure if that was something we wanted to
That's what we're
pursue.
going to do, and once we can identify a date amongst everybody's schedule, because we have 5 of us, and
Yeah.
then their legislative representative. Once we can do that, then we can publish it. We have to vote on it to change our meetings, because I don't think our initial resolution regarding our meetings covers a special meeting with
Right.
the legislative delegates. And when we have 5 of us, or when we have 3 or more, we need to publish that meeting, which we would like to do. So once we get a date, then we'll get that published, and we can go from there.
Okay.
Is there anything else in regards to the proclamations and resolutions to let everybody know? Hearing none, we'll go to the appointments to boards and committees. Under H1, this is the appointment to the Cabarrus County Youth Council. Do we have a motion to appoint Isaiah Alexander to the Cabarrus County Youth Council for a 2-year term ending April 18th, 2013, appoint Ian Smith and Cameron Watson to Cabarrus County Youth Council for 1-year terms ending April 18th, 2012, and remove Mrs. Juliana Sorors from the roster?
So moved.
We have a motion, we have a second? Motion and a second. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed. Motion carries. Next we have is appointments to the CJPP, or the Criminal Justice Partnership Program. We have a motion to reappoint Mr. Robert Smith and Mr. David Collins to the Criminal Justice Partnership Program for 3-year terms ending April 30th, 2014, and approve the reclassification of the mental health position to a regular voting member.
So moved.
We have a motion, we have a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed. Motion carries. And with that, if we can take just about a 10-minute recess, and we will get back here at 8:20. Does anybody have an motion or objection to that? We'll go into recess for 10 minutes.